Most people who are serious about self-improvement are actually stuck. They just do not know it yet. Not stuck in the way you think, not lazy, not undisciplined, not lacking information. They are stuck because they keep doing the same loop over and over and calling it progress. The hard reset, the streak, the crash, the guilt, the harder reset. And at no point does anyone stop to tell them what is actually happening or where they actually are. So that is what this video is. There are 7 stages to real self-improvement, not motivation levels, not personality types, actual stages in order that almost everyone moves through. And right now, today, you are sitting inside one of them. Maybe you know which one. Maybe you just have a feeling. Either way, by the end of this, you will know exactly where you are, and more importantly, you will understand why you have been getting stuck there. One more thing before we start. Stage 7 is where almost nobody arrives, not because they are not capable of it, but because they never understood the 5 stages they were supposed to pass through first. So stay with me, because what is waiting at the end of this might actually change how you see yourself completely. Stage 1 is what I call the drift. You are not doing anything wrong technically. You are just doing nothing right either. Your days run on autopilot. Short hits of pleasure, scroll, snack, repeat. And here's the thing, it would almost be fine if you were actually happy. But most people stuck in the drift are not happy at all. They are just numbing out. They are sedating themselves and hoping that one day something shifts on its own. Miyamoto Musashi wrote that you must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain, but first you have to want to climb, and that is exactly the trap. Every degenerate choice you make quietly tells your subconscious that you are someone who makes degenerate choices, and once you believe that about yourself, escaping feels almost impossible. The only way out is to want something badly enough to move toward it. And one day, for most people, that moment arrives, but it almost never looks the way you expect it to. Stage 2, the spark. So you woke up one morning and something snapped. Not in a dramatic way, not some movie moment where the music swells and everything clicks into place. No, it was quieter than that. You just got tired. Tired of the smell of your own stagnation. Tired of opening your phone first thing in the morning and feeling that familiar emptiness crawl back in. And so you moved. You did the dishes that had been sitting there for 4 days. You laced up those running shoes that had been collecting dust by the door, and you just went outside. No plan, no app, no perfectly optimized morning routine you found on the internet. You just went. Musashi said that today is victory over yourself of yesterday, and for one day, one single day, that was exactly what you were doing. You stopped eating garbage, you drank water, you went to bed at a reasonable hour, and honestly, it felt incredible. You felt like a different person. Like maybe this was the version of you that had been buried under all that noise. But then you went to sleep. And when you woke up the next morning, your phone was right there. The fridge had the same stuff in it. Your environment had not changed. And slowly, quietly, the old pulls came back. The old habits reactivated. And just like that, most people slide straight back to stage 1. If any of this is hitting close to home, drop a comment with just the number 1. No explanation needed, just 1. It tells me you are here, you are watching, and honestly, it helps more than you know. This stage usually burns bright for about a day, maybe 2 if you are lucky. But here is why it still matters. Sometimes, just sometimes, it lights the fuse for stage 3, and stage 3 is where things get genuinely interesting, because it is also where most people build a trap they do not even realize they are inside. Stage 3, the pendulum. Now this is where it gets interesting, because some people during that one blazing day of stage 2 actually did something smart. They caught a glimpse of something, a version of themselves they genuinely wanted to become, and instead of just feeling it, they acted on it. They deleted the apps. They moved the junk food out of reach. They set up their environment just enough to make the next day slightly easier than the last. And it worked. Days started stacking. One good day became 3. 3 became a week. You were going to the gym consistently. You were sleeping better. Your skin looked cleaner. You were drinking water instead of whatever you used to pour into yourself every afternoon. You looked in the mirror and thought, yeah, this is it. This is the person I actually want to be. But here is where the pendulum swings back hard. The pressure you put on yourself during this stage is enormous. You cannot afford a bad day. You cannot afford to walk past a fast food place and let the smell tempt you because you are terrified that one bite unravels everything. The streak becomes the whole identity. Musashi understood this trap deeply. He wrote that you should not have a favorite weapon. Over-reliance on one thing creates a fatal weakness. And that is exactly what the streak becomes, your favorite weapon, your only weapon. So when you slip, and you will slip, it is not just a bad day. It feels like the entire structure collapses. Your mind swings to the opposite extreme. You binge. You go back to every habit you abandoned. One part of your brain says we have been starved of this, we might as well go all in, and the other part quietly agrees and lets it happen. Then the guilt arrives, and the disgust. And out of that disgust, you launch another streak, stricter this time, longer this time, until it breaks again. This is the yo-yo, and the reason most people stay trapped in it is because they have built their entire sense of progress on an unbroken chain of perfect days. They think that doing everything right at full speed is how you finally stop falling, but sprinting harder on the same road does not fix the road. And eventually, the exhaustion of sprinting forces you to do something you probably should have done much earlier. You stop looking outward for the answer, and you start looking inward. That is stage 4, and it is smarter than what came before, but it has its own quiet trap waiting inside it. Stage 4, the tinkerer. So you are exhausted from the swinging. You are tired of being your own worst enemy. You look back at the last few months and you see this embarrassing pattern of high streaks and hard crashes, and you think, okay, clearly grinding harder is not the answer. There has to be something I am missing on the inside. And so you turn inward. This is the stage where people start doing the inner work. Therapy, psychology podcasts, videos exactly like this one, trying to reverse engineer why your own brain keeps working against you. Maybe you are watching this right now for exactly that reason. You learn about identity-based habits, you track your sleep, you cut out certain foods and notice you think more clearly. Musashi spent years in isolation studying not just the sword, but the nature of his own mind. He called this knowing yourself in combat. And that is precisely what you are doing here. You are finally studying the battlefield inside. And it genuinely helps. Life starts to feel a little more lubricated, a little less like you are dragging yourself through wet concrete every single day. But here is the honest truth about this stage, and I say this as someone who has done every single one of these things. None of it will manufacture the actual desire to change. You can optimize your environment perfectly and still feel hollow underneath, because optimizing your inputs does not automatically rewire what you want. It smooths the path, but it does not give you a reason to walk it. That reason has to come from somewhere deeper. And most people, when they cannot find that reason inside, do the next logical thing. They go looking for it in the eyes of other people. That is stage 5. And for a while, it actually works. The problem is what it quietly costs you. Stage 5, the performer. So, you have been consistent for a while now, longer than ever before. The old version of you feels distant, almost like a character from a story you used to live in. You are going to the gym. You look better. You feel better, and people around you are starting to notice. And then something shifts. You start wanting people to know. Maybe you are 30 pounds down and you think, I should document this. So you make an account. You start posting your workouts, your meals, your progress photos. You want to bring people along on the journey. And honestly, a big part of that instinct comes from a genuinely good place. Sharing what worked for you, showing someone who is stuck in stage 1 that there is a way out. That is not a bad thing. That is actually valuable. But underneath that generosity, if you look closely enough, there is something else running, a quieter engine, because you are not just trying to help other people, you are trying to convince yourself. Musashi wrote that the true way of the warrior is not to seek glory, but to act without need for recognition. And this stage is the exact opposite of that. You need the recognition. You need it because somewhere deep down you are still not fully sure you have actually made it. So you build an audience to confirm it for you. Every like, every comment, every follower tells your nervous system, see, you are not that person anymore. You have changed. You are worth something now. And it works for a while, but here is where it gets brittle. Because when the likes slow down, when someone leaves a dismissive comment, when the algorithm stops pushing your content, you feel it personally, deeply. Because your identity is now tied to the performance. You have built your sense of self on an external scoreboard that you do not control. You start getting defensive when people challenge you. You feel threatened by others doing better. You curate everything. The messy days disappear from your feed. The bad weeks never get posted. You start living two versions of your life simultaneously, the one you are actually experiencing and the one you are broadcasting, and maintaining both is exhausting. This is what Instagram culture quietly sells people on. The idea that somewhere out there exists a person who has it completely together, 100% of the time, in every area of life, and you are just one more optimized morning routine away from becoming them. But that person does not exist. And at some point, chasing someone who does not exist gets heavy enough that something in you just stops. Not dramatically, not all at once. It is more like a slow exhale that you did not realize you had been holding. That is stage 6. And it is the first stage that actually feels like freedom. Stage 6, the letting go. And often it does not feel like progress when it arrives. It feels like giving up. You just get tired. Tired of performing. Tired of curating. Tired of waking up every morning and mentally checking whether your life looks impressive enough from the outside. The mask gets heavy. And one day, you just kind of stop holding it up so tightly. You eat the burger. Not because you failed, not because you relapsed, just because you wanted a burger and you went and got one. You play video games with your friends on a Friday night because it sounds fun and you genuinely enjoy it. And then the next morning, you go to the gym because you actually want to, not because you need to prove something to yourself or to anyone watching. And something feels different this time, quietly, noticeably different. For the first time, you are doing both, the so-called healthy things and the so-called indulgent things, and neither one is carrying the weight of your entire identity. If any of this is resonating with where you are right now, drop a comment with just the number 2. It means you made it this far, and that already says something real about you. Musashi spent years living with almost nothing, no permanent home, no comfort, no performance for anyone. He said that you should not pursue the taste of good food, not because pleasure is wrong, but because attachment to it owns you. And this stage is where that attachment finally starts to loosen. You start noticing that the unhealthy thing you used to desperately crave does not actually feel that good when you do it too much. And the healthy thing you used to force yourself through now just feels like what you do. Not a rule, not a discipline, just a preference that developed quietly over time through all that struggling. This is the stage where very few people actually arrive. Some get here in their 50s or 60s and call it wisdom, but it can happen earlier if you are paying attention. And when it does happen, when the performing stops and the preference takes over, something opens up underneath it that is very hard to describe until you are standing in it. That is the final stage, and it is the quietest one of all. Stage 7, the real one. This is the final stage, and I want you to understand something before I describe it. Most people never get here, not because they are not capable, but because they never stop running long enough to realize the race was never what they thought it was. The real stage is quiet. There is no announcement, no transformation montage. You do not wake up one morning feeling like a completely different person. It is more like you just gradually stop pretending. The ego starts to soften. You say what you actually think in conversations instead of calculating how it will land. You open up to the people around you a little more easily. There is a lightness to how you move through the day that was not there before. You are not afraid of your flaws anymore, not embracing them either, not doing that thing where people say, "I am just brutally honest," as an excuse to be careless. You are just aware of them. You are working with what you have. Musashi spent the final years of his life writing about this exact state. He said that the ultimate aim is not to win or lose, but to reach a place where neither outcome disturbs your center. That is the real stage, undisturbed. Not because nothing is happening, but because you have stopped needing everything to go perfectly in order to feel okay about yourself. You know you are never going to be perfect. And the interesting thing is that realization does not feel like defeat anymore. It feels like relief. Like you finally put down something extremely heavy that you had been carrying for years without noticing. And from that place, direction becomes simple. You do not need a grand obsessive vision board or a 5-year plan written in a leather journal. You just know roughly where you want to go, and every step in that direction feels like its own reward. The motivation is not manufactured. It generates itself. And I always use the gym as the example because it is the clearest one. Early on, hatred of how you look in the mirror is powerful fuel. It gets you started. It gets you through the door. But hatred is not the thing that keeps you going for years. What keeps you going is simply that you like how you feel when you go. That is it. No mystery, no complicated system. You just like it. And that same principle applies to everything else. Eating well, sleeping properly, showing up for your relationships, doing your work with care. At some point, the reason shifts from "I have to" "I want to," because I know how good it feels, and I know how bad the alternative feels. And once that shift happens, you stop needing to white-knuckle your way through your own life. All those years of yo-yoing, all the crashes, all the streaks that fell apart at day 11, all of it was data. It was information. It was your life quietly teaching you what works for you and what does not. And if you can start treating it like data instead of evidence of failure, something opens up. You stop catastrophizing every bad day. You stop reading every craving as proof that you have not changed. When the urge comes, because it will come, you just take a breath. You say, "Yeah, I saw this coming. I know this feeling. I know what happens if I go down that road, and I know what happens if I do not." And then you choose. Calmly, clearly, without drama. That is the energy of the real stage. Not perfection, just awareness, just honesty, just a person who knows themselves well enough to make a considered choice and live with it either way. Musashi wrote at the end of his life that there is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. And I think that is the truest description of what this final stage actually feels like. Now, before you go, if this video gave you something real today, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second and it genuinely helps this content reach someone else who might be sitting in stage 1 right now, wondering if anything will ever change for them. Your one tap could be the thing that shifts something for them, so do it. And if you have been watching for a while without subscribing, today is the day. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for the version of you that wants to keep thinking clearly and keep moving forward. New videos go up regularly, and every single one is built to give you something useful to carry into your week. Drop a comment below telling me which stage you are in right now. Be honest, nobody is judging. This is the one place where you can just say it plainly. And if you watched all the way to the end of this video, that already tells me something about you. You are not someone who drifts. You are someone who is paying attention, and that matters more than you think. We will see you in the next one.